And look at that, it is Thursday again. Welcome, my name is Dr. T, Tanya Uester, from my page Botanicamy, Alchemy of Soothing Botanic Ingredients. And I really needed to take very good notes while I was doing my research for today's live session. I can see Keeping Healthy Real just joined. That is a really cool name. Welcome. Hello, Catherine. I can see you're there. And Jerry, all of you on Insta. I'm so glad my Instagram audience is growing because that at least means my Insta is not cutting out like it used to on this device. So really cool. Those coming in on Facebook, again, just a reminder to let me know you're there so I can say hi. Put something in the comments where you're from. What excites you about today's chemical constituent? I really did need to make very thorough notes today because the constituent we are going to be talking about today has been researched for such a long time that I could probably talk to you for 3 hours without an end, not even taking a breath. It's one of the most exciting constituents for me because it is so incredibly versatile. And it's also made a really big difference in my own health and life, in supporting my wellness. Everyday wellness things that I do, my daily habits. I can see Bev is logged in from Facebook. Really good to have you on. And Zaida, hi, good to have you here. So let's talk today about the chemical constituent called Linalool. And if for those of you, I presented over the weekend at a something we called Spring Tour, a mini convention, if we can call it that, more an introduction and talking about the reason oils work, in other words, the chemistry. I was really fortunate to be able to speak live about my passion, which was really exciting for me. And I actually sort of touched on Linalool while I was doing the presentation over the weekend as well at the event. So we will dig into it a little bit more scientifically today and add a little bit more, because obviously there I was doing a presentation about very many essential oils, whereas today I'm speaking about a very single chemical constituent which you find in so very many oils. Actually more than 200 essential oils, and it's always at a varying percentage, and we will be talking specifically about those that have it in a very high concentration today, because when you start seeking out the Linalool after you've learned today all the amazing things that it can do for you, and I'll only mention a few, don't worry, it won't be a 3-hour lesson, then you're probably going to want to go and find some of these essential oils so that you can benefit from the health supporting benefits. So it's a non-cyclic monoterpenoid, monoterpenol. So this is the first time we're going to be talking about specifically something that is not in a circular form, right? So if we look at the chemical structure, it's a carbon backbone, okay, with about 10 carbons in there, not about 10 carbons exactly. And then it has a functional molecule called an alcohol, not the one that gets you drunk, definitely not that one. But it is an alcohol because there's an oxygen you can see right there, which is on the one end connected to the carbon backbone, and on the other side it's connected to a hydrogen molecule, and that is what makes this a functional alcohol group, and it's called Linalool. It actually goes by several other names as well. One of its synonyms is corandriol. Just giving you a hint there, some of the other essential oils that you're going to find Linalool in. And it's actually found in quite a high concentration in many oils, which we don't really think about. I mean, if we think Linalool, we're always shooting to lavender immediately, right? I can see some hearts coming through for that comment. Yes, definitely. We always think of lavender when we think of Linalool. But there are an incredible large array of oils which actually do have a very high concentration of Linalool in them. So when you think of Linalool, now you know it's non-cyclic. It's a monoterpene and terpenol because it is an alcohol. When you think about lavender, for example, you already start thinking calming, soothing, relaxing, and we'll talk about that today. But when you think of Linalool, the reason why most people love lavender is because of that Linalool fragrance, the chemical constituent itself. That is what gives that floral note to lavender. And if you're someone that really doesn't like lavender because you've probably been exposed to not the real thing, in other words, something that's been produced in a lab, it smells a little bit different compared to smelling a whole oil, for example. I can see we have Lizal, 2 L's. Is there an accent on the L then? That's quite an interesting way to spell Liesel. Liesel, I don't know. Let me know. Spears, welcome. Great to have you on Facebook as well today. Practicing my South African pronunciation for names there, I see. It's a new way of spelling something, which I find very exciting and interesting. I can also see Coiled Essential Oil has just joined on Insta, as well as Jess. Welcome. Good to have you on. So, I've lost completely lost my train of thought there. But it's found in more than 200 essential oils. And if you are someone that doesn't like lavender, for example, I don't know, they really are people that are quite offended by the smell. I would suggest you get a real essential oil first give it a go. And if you really don't like it, there's obviously a lot of alternatives for you, which I'll be highlighting today. And then you can also choose, because of the other chemical constituents that are found in that oil that are going to give different supporting benefits. You may then choose the oil that's going to give you what it is that you need from a particular essential oil with some of the other components combined. And then you can really decide, okay, I don't like lavender, but hey, you know what? I like these other oils, which are also high in linalool, and this is why I will be using them. So let's get started. Like menthol, which is what I spoke about last week. Remember, that's the one in the peppermint. Linalool is, of course, a monoterpene alcohol, both of them being monoterpene alcohols. I can see Engel has also just logged in. Welcome. And that alcohol molecule specifically, part of that monoterpene, the chemical constituent, it provides additional properties for this specific chemical constituent that are usually, as a group, very antibacterial and antifungal, which we would always see in terminology being described as cleansing, antiseptic, immunostimulant, so it can support your immune system. It also is very tonifying to the body physiologically, tonic, but also to the mind and the emotions. And it can also be stimulating depending on which oil you're using, because there may be other chemical constituents in there that are also going to be providing some energizing benefits. So not just the sedative, put you to sleep kind of scenario. And if we look specifically at linalool on its own, it can promote restoration and recovery of body systems, because it is a very calming, it falls into the calming group or the soothing group of molecules, but specifically when we talk about essential oils. It does definitely have sedative properties. So it relaxes physiological as well as psychological. Now, physiological, what's going on inside the body, and psychological, what's going on in the mind. Activity, and it's because of the neurotransmitters that are going to be affected. Now, neurotransmitters are messages that our brain either produces or moves around to send signals and messages to the rest of your body so that it knows what to do. There is a lot of Dr. Google information, shall we call it that, saying how dangerous lavender can be for you because it is so incredibly skin sensitizing. And usually they attribute that to the linalool that's in there. And may I just say, Dr. Google is wrong. In my research, I think the most people that do become very sensitized to specifically linalool, the usual case is because they're using products that have been oxidized on the one side, but it's usually because of the other ingredients in that impure product that is having a reaction on your skin or causing your skin to oversensitize. I know, for example, of many aromatherapists who have been using impure essential oils, for example, so only beauty grade, not necessarily a tested grade. It's not tested. It's not a pharmaceutical grade or a grade that you're going to be supporting your health with. And being exposed to that on a daily basis, people tend to say, I'm allergic to lavender. And it's not actually in the lavender or the linalool itself. It's usually because of a combination of the other things that are in that specific product that they've been using extensively every single day during their working hours for a very long period of time. And I actually went and double verified that in Tisserand's guide for health professionals, where they talk very specifically about the skin sensitization, because it's so well known online that it may cause some skin reactions. So I'm actually going to read to you from this Bible book that I have here. And it seems that what he writes in there as a summary, because obviously linalool is one of those, I think there's probably about 3 or 4 A4 pages worth of information just on linalool specifically in here. Linalool seems incapable of eliciting any allergic reaction in healthy individuals because, in fact, as you know, linalool and lavender is one of those that we usually tend to use to calm down a skin that has become oversensitized, right? And even when tested at 20%, now that is very strong therapeutic dose, right? That is a very strong percentage. In dermatitis patients, so these are patients where their skin barrier has already been compromised. In other words, it's already damaged. So then you do tend to become a little bit more sensitive. So even at that very high concentration where patients had already developed a dermatitis, there was either 0% reaction or a 0.17%. So the range was between 0 to 0.17%. That is very, very low. So there are definitely some reports in literature where they talk again about where the linalool has been oxidized and it then becoming sensitizing to the skin. But in most cases, whoops, there goes the book. In most cases, when you're adding antioxidants to your products, and a very low concentration of antioxidant like tocopherol, so vitamin E, is actually required to stabilize the molecule so that it does not become oxidized. Even at 0.1%, if you add the vitamin E or the tocopherol to the product, it's going to prevent the oxidization of linalool. So I think a lot of the information out there online is not necessarily always reflecting to the truth, and therefore it's a good idea to go and do proper research and see what the peer-reviewed scientific references and research is actually showing. In other words, experimental as well as clinical data, and not just hearsay of what someone is saying on their blog, for example. Wellness by Design has also just joined on Insta. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you on. So I felt very relaxed after reading that bit of information in the Tisserand guide because there's a lot of benefits from using specifically oils high in linalool on a daily basis as part of a preventative health strategy, which you of course could not do if you're going to have the risk of oversensitization, for example. They do summarize specifically in that health professionals guide that linalool is non-carcinogenic and that it actually shows quite a large spectrum of anti-cancer activity in large amount of cell lines. Now, take into account, this is test tubes, right? Or not really test tubes, cell culture flasks, where they are using specific cancer cell lines and they're testing the effect of linalool on these. And they have a really broad anti-cancer benefit, which is really amazing. Obviously, clinical research as well as further experimental research is required in real bodies, but that is what the test tube analysis says. There's also, again, he reiterates, there's an extremely low risk of skin sensitization. So when we start looking at specifically lavender, as I mentioned, if you like the fragrance of lavender, you're probably after that linalool. But if you don't like it, there are very many other oils. And we'll talk about the percentage of them that you find in oils and why you would use them. But the ones that come to mind very quickly is coriander and cilantro, obviously being from the same plant. Coriander being from the seed, cilantro coming from the leaves, basil, petitgrain. I'm not a fan of petitgrain. I love lavender a lot more compared to petitgrain, but I do have to say when I put petitgrain with other things, then it smells a lot better. So I think it's an either or kind of scenario. They actually call petitgrain the manly lavender because it's got an almost woody, I would say a woody, earthy kind of fragrance to it instead of that very flower that you get from a lavender specifically. Hi, Veronica. I can see you've also just logged in. Welcome. Good to have you on. So through research, we can see that topically, lavender specifically that was tested here, but all oils very high in linalool have good cleansing properties in experimental research. And what that means is it's reconfirming that antibacterial, antiviral, antiseptic behavior, but it also has the ability to cleanse very thoroughly. So therefore, it's exceptionally good to be used topically. And if we think about the flower oils in general that are quite high, or the herbs that are quite high, these are very good for the surface layers. In other words, the outer surface layers of your skin. Remember the wood oils, they work a lot better on the deeper, they penetrate a little bit deeper and they work on the deeper layers of the tissue of the skin. Whereas with the flower oils, they tend to work very nicely on the outside, the outer layers of the skin. So topically, these oils high in linalool have the same calming benefit that it has physiologically inside your body, as well as emotionally, psychologically. And therefore, we do tend to use the oils high in linalool very often, especially when we are dealing with minor skin irritations. when we're using them aromatically, and I'm going to tell you a little secret, you can see my diffuser running in the background there, going blue, white. So I have to go with the times now because our 3-phase generator blew up the other day. Yes, during a very long phase of not load shedding, there was cable theft. And there was a very long period of time that we were without electricity and I needed to run the generator, and the load was too high. It's simply all that happened. And it blew up. Luckily, not a huge explosion, but the whole machine went. It was not a very pleasurable experience when we had to find out exactly what it would cost us to replace it. So now we are going green. And although it's a large investment, we are doing solar, right? So let me just start the week off. The entire crate of solar panels apparently arrived and was dropped by the logistics company. All of them broke. So it's been quite a rough week at home. And today specifically, they're drilling very many holes, and there's nothing more annoying to me and irritating to me than drills or leaf blowers, I'd say, or chainsaws and grinders. Those noises really aggravate my nervous system and make me angry for just no reason. Okay, I can't explain it. Kobus, you've also just logged in. You missed the part about my generator. I think you would have enjoyed that. So we're busy installing solar, and today has been incredibly tasking, I would say. And what I have in that diffuser in the back is amazing that I've not fallen asleep yet. I've put in all my oils that are incredibly high in linalool concentration. And the reason I've done that is because of how it supports your body calming down. And let's talk about that and how the chemistry works specifically so that you understand why I have all of those oils in my diffuser at the background. And it really has worked because I'm actually quite chilled about it at the moment. Maybe later it'll start aggravating again, and then I'll just add them again. Yeah, Catherine's laughing about the leaf blowers. I don't know. I have a neighbor that I think it's his favorite power tool. He just keeps on leaf blowing. So when I'm quite close by, it's I don't know. It aggravates me. Right. So, Veronica's saying people chewing, people chewing. I also don't like people chewing very loudly. Are we oversensory? Maybe. I don't know. So let's talk about aromatically. Because the oils very high in linalool promote feelings of calmness and relaxation. And this is on experimental research, which I'm going to mention in a little while. But there's also internal benefits. If you're going to be using oils that are tested grade, remember there are many oils out there that do say not for internal use, don't use them internally. They haven't been tested. There's no test results on them. They have no idea whether the oil is actually pure. The essential oil industry is largely unregulated. So if you don't have contact with oils that are safe for internal use, reach out to me. I can get them to you. But if you are going to be using them internally, the benefits are really amazing because they can help improve a healthy circulatory system because they're sort of relaxing to the veins. And there's also in vivo research showing where lavender specific linalool rich lavender, because they do have various percentages depending on whose brand you're going to be buying, may be beneficial also to the immune system. And it may also provide additional benefits of calming and soothing when we start looking at sleep. Kobus van Tonner, beer does that for me. Oh, he says he's getting that calming feeling from the beer. Yes, hops is actually known as a slight nervine, calms the nervous system down. If you're going to consume too much, obviously the alcohol is going to have other side effects, but that is why beer is actually so calming to the system. So, really amazing, and this is some of the research that I talked about over the weekend, is GABA. Now, GABA is something that has fascinated me for a very long time. I originally tested very low for GABA in my body, and I never understood why. Now, let's just get to why GABA is really important for your body. It is a neurotransmitter. It's a message, right? And it is what your body needs quite a high level of for you to be able to sleep and relax. Without it, if your levels are low, you're going to have really poor quality sleep and you don't have the ability to relax really sufficiently. All right. Now, what they have found is that linalool actually strengthens GABA transmission. In other words, the transmission of these messages in your body, which means it's going to improve the way that your body responds. Now, where do we get GABA from? We can get a very small percentage from our diet. It's actually not that great. Soya, for example, has it in. There's miso, which is that sort of Japanesey kind of fermented product. But in general, GABA is not in a high concentration in foods. Where we do actually produce it is in our brains, and it needs precursors for that. But a very large part of that has to do with our microbiome. And we actually have these amazing bacteria in our gut that produce GABA. So some of them actually consume neurotransmitters that our bodies make, some of them produce. And actually, specifically the bacteroides, they're really good at producing GABA. Now, if you have someone who has suffered with poor gut health for most of their life, like I did, until we discovered the natural solutions way, and it's much improved right now, you are probably going to be deficient in the microbes that are producing GABA, which probably also means it's going to be affecting your emotions as well as your sleep quality and your ability to relax, because your body needs the GABA for that. And if you're not producing enough, then you are going to be low. So if you find essential oils that are high in constituents that can improve that sort of cycle and how things work and the messages get sent through the body, definitely a natural solutions that worth exploring, in my opinion. What we also are seeing is that we do need it for good sleep in a sense because of our way that we sleep. So we generally go through about 4 cycles of non-rapid eye movement, non-REM sleep, and then there's a REM cycle, a rapid eye movement. And during the non-rapid, that's obviously while we're let me just quickly check. Restoring cells, we're building and rebuilding. So it's the regenerating the muscle tissue, for example. It's your organs, and they go through these stages in the Chinese meridian clock where they work at their hardest and what they're busy processing and doing. It's also very supportive for your bones and your immune system and your health during the non-rapid eye movement. And then we have the REM cycle, which is the rapid eye movement cycle. And this is what we need for our brains to process what has just been repaired. So making space. Sorry, part of the non-REM, what I think is also a really big part there is this is where your body also is taking or transferring, in other words, sending information to the cortex to make new connections and memories. And the REM is then required to process that and like defragging. So if you've got an old school Windows computer, you've got to defrag every now and then, otherwise it conks out. The reason why I support something else and not Windows. But you need the REM, the defrag, to separate all those things and sort through the memory so your brain can make space for that entire cycle to take place again the next day. And that, according to research, you need 7.5 to 9 hours every single night to go through all those stages. And research and statistics show that most of us get less than 7. Okay, so the more supportive we can be for our bodies with Linalool high essential oils before bedtime as part of a bedtime routine, the better our bodies are going to function, to reset our adrenals, to reset our immune systems, and to make space in our brain so we have space to learn new things the next day. So what is also lesser known is not just smelling these essential oils, but using them internally and how supportive they can be to improve sleep quality, but also for your immune system and your circulatory system. So really, really beneficial if you have a good oil, a good company oil that you can trust, that you can be using all 3 ways, aromatically, to soothe those very irritated emotions, calming you down, and helping you to improve your sleep. But remember, it's also incredibly good to be using it on your skin, and it's going to get into your cells in that manner anyway. So let's look at the oils and their percentages specifically, because then you can decide which lavender, which magnolia, which cilantro, what is going to work best for you depending on what you're after to support in your life. So magnolia, I didn't know this, and this is, you remember those hand soaps we used to get? I'm not going to give my age away now, but those of you that are in the same generation that I am, we used to get this hand soap, magnolia hand soap. Very strong fragrance, but obviously produced in a laboratory, synthetic. I got such bad hay fever from it. Always, I couldn't come near to the stuff, right? It was just so overpowering and strong. And obviously the real magnolia flower essential oil smells nothing like it, which I'm really glad about, because magnolia is the one with the highest percentage or concentration of linalool at 50 to 80%. It helps you to feel more connected on the emotional level, compassionate, unified, thoughtful, even perceptive and respectful. and it takes care of when you feel numb, withdrawn and unsympathetic. So if you're after the Linalool and you would like to support the nervous system and the skin, Magnolia is going to be your oil because of all the other emotional benefits that it's going to provide you with the other chemical constituents that are in there, but you're going to get the double whammy from the Linalool as well. Basil. Now, basil is an oil that I use very routinely in my cooking for the internal benefits because of the circulatory support that it provides. Also really good for reproductive system and the nervous system as well as the skin. But I use basil very routinely because it is really good in helping me go through my womanly hormone fluctuations through the whole month. It's just one of those where when I feel really fragile, basil is definitely always the one that I reach for first. It is an incredible oil for that. It also has linalool in it, 40 to 80%. So very, very beneficial if you're going to be going for the hormone, the endocrine, the reproductive support. The basil is very good. Coriander actually has higher percentage linalool compared to the cilantro. But let's talk about the coriander because that's the one that comes from the seed. I actually have mine imported, and my coriander itself, that particular batch, has linalool in a concentration of 71.6%. That is huge. Can you imagine the calming benefit that you're going to get from either using that in cooking or even just putting it in a diffuser? It really is good for digestive support as well as the nervous system and the skin, the coriander oil specifically. Then let's talk about lavender because lavender is the oil of communication. Now, we always talk about lavender oil on the emotional side as the oil of communication because it helps you to be emotionally honest and become self-aware so that the communication that you have with other people and the connections you have is really true. But now remember about the GABA. So it's not just the physical talking and communication, it's also the communication that's happening with inside your body because GABA is a neurotransmitter, is a message, all right? So it's really good for promoting peaceful sleep, helping to soothe anxious feelings, and even when used internally, it's going to be very supportive in your sleep regime. So maybe add a drop or two underneath your tongue a half an hour before bed and see if that really helps up your sleep cycle. Clary sage, another one very well known for hormone support on the male as well as the female side. The linalool is between 8 to 40% depending on who's you're purchasing. And this is really good for good looking hair and scalp. Very good for the skin as well. Probably one of the ones that I'm a little bit more wary of the fragrance specifically. So I tend to just apply it to my feet or to my ankle area because it's very supportive to the endocrine system over there. I'm going to get the same linalool boosting effect, calming of the nervous system, calming of the soothing and soothing of my emotions. Cilantro, 10 to 35%. So you can see slightly lower, but still quite high. That is still a very high percentage of a chemical constituent in an oil. And of course, cilantro is, again, very good for digestive support. And it can provide very good flavor. I make a really beautiful cilantro hummus with chickpeas. And if I don't have enough fresh coriander leaves or cilantro in my garden, I up the flavor with my cilantro essential oil. And now we know it's also really good for cleansing and detoxifying your internal body. So at the same time, you're getting the linalool, which is going to be really relaxing to the veins, for example, very good for the circulatory system, and at the same time provide a lot of digestive benefits and detoxing benefits. Petitgrain. Now that is the one that comes from the twigs of the orange tree. So we have neroli and we have the bitter orange and we have the petitgrain coming from the same tree. So the petitgrain is the leaves and the twigs. And it's really got that a little bit more woody sort of fragrance to it. Man's lavender, that's what we call it. May help support a healthy cardiovascular function, for example, and definitely good for restful sleep. There's really good research showing that using petitgrain oil internally specifically is going to support a good quality sleep. So again, just 1 or 2 drops underneath the tongue. Tested grade only. Please make sure your brand is for internal use. And then bergamot or bergamot, depending on how you say it, between 3 to 20%. Now, bergamot is a really good essential oil, especially on the emotional side. It helps with the oxytocin, also another neurotransmitter. But it really helps you to feel more hopeful and lovable. The hug hormone, right? The oxytocin. So bergamot is really good in a diffuser, especially for calming and soothing. And now you also know it's got a high concentration of linalool. So I went full wham today. I threw everything in my diffuser, including the kitchen sink, coriander, lavender, clary sage, basil, petitgrain, and bergamot. I can honestly not tell you if the fragrance really smelled amazing. It's not the best diffuser recipe, best smelling diffuser recipe, but let me tell you, I'm a lot calmer now than I was an hour ago when they were still drilling and grinding. So yes, maybe they've just quietened down because they know I'm doing a live class right now. But I am really a lot calmer than I was an hour ago. So these oils definitely, if I'm a live testimonial to you now, really do what they say they're going to do because of the linalool that's in there. So when it comes to the benefits of a linalool containing essential oil, it's all about the chemistry, remember, and how it works with our neurotransmitters, how it works with the cells in our body. So the next time you really do need to unwind, want to support your cardiovascular system, go and reach for an oil high in linalool. And if you can't remember exactly which ones are high, you'll just go and see on my social media. I made my invitation to today's class, and also what will appear as the image before I load this as a replay onto YouTube. It shows very nicely the percentages of what the linalool will be present in most of these essential oils. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh my goodness, I still went 2 minutes over time and I limited myself. There is so much more research about linalool. It's actually just absolutely fantastic. Really good clinical research coming out now as well. Many clinical trials running. So very exciting to be in this arena at the moment, being able to try and uncomplicate things scientifically for you so you can understand as an end user at home how you can use your oils to support your wellness on a daily basis for preventative health. Thanks for joining me. I will see you all again next week, Thursday, for my next live. And please share if you do think someone close to you really does need some relaxation as well. Cheerio.